Hello everyone, you're watching The Real Med White. And first of all, Happy New Year's to the people watching this channel, to the subscribers, to the haters, to everyone. Happy New Year's. And we're gonna be entering New Year's with a new video. And as you can guess from the title, this is gonna be a refutation video kind of a deal. We're gonna be reviewing Classical Atheist's video that was made, I believe, 3 days ago or something like that, where he tries to respond to the arguments made against the Sacred Heart. And you can kind of guess what it's going to be, but I'm going to be reviewing that. I already have a good idea of what the arguments are going to be, but it won't hurt trying to look at it again. And we're going to see if it matches up, if we're going to see if it makes sense. And instead of making a PowerPoint presentation, what I want to do is I just want to listen to what he has to say and just give you my thoughts according to that. So let's just start with the video. Let's go. Trad Europa intro. Medieval I still don't know what medieval popery means, but yeah. Beatific vision, yes, and all that. And first of all, stop. Let's just make our first stop here. I don't like this. I don't like the meme sunglasses on Thomas Aquinas. Now, Thomas Aquinas is not a saint of mine, but I don't like this kind of new irreverent meme culture that we have going on here. And I've spoken out against this myself, so this isn't the first time I'm speaking against this. I am very much against the irreverent meme culture seeping into or to the saints, whether it's our saints or whether it's for Roman Catholic saints. I could never put meme sunglasses or beaming eyes or whatever to a saint of my church because it's just irreverent, right? When you look at the portrait of a saint, when you're looking at an icon of a saint or whatnot, you're supposed to revere it, you're supposed to respect it. You're not supposed to, scribble something or just play around with it. It just doesn't make sense. It's just irreverent. It's just unsuitable. It's rude to the saint. It's not befitting to how you should treat a saint. You should be treating a representation of a saint as if you're treating the saint himself. And your saint is not your best friend from the military. He's not your friend from the military. He's not your school friend or whatnot. He's a person of importance. He's a person of authority, and you should revere him. You should venerate him. You shouldn't consider him in a meme context. I mean, imagine going to a Catholic church, for example. If you're a Catholic, you go to a Catholic church, you look at a painting of Thomas Aquinas, and you go, "Wow, this is amazing." And the first thing that comes up to your mind is like Thomas Aquinas memes. If that's the first thing that comes to your mind, it's not your fault per se. It's just your mind has just been poisoned. And this has happened to me, for example. This is why I'm against icon profile pictures. When I look at Saint Nicholas, right? Saint Tsar Nicholas. When I look at an icon of Saint Nicholas, and I think of Saint Nicholas avatar people who are stupid, I don't want to think of them. I want to think of Saint Nicholas. So that's kind of it's my pet peeve. I don't like this. And as a matter of fact, why don't we just put this out of our face? Let's instead show you guys this. So the topic is Sacred Heart, right? And well, if the topic is about Sacred Heart, then we should kind of look at Margaret Mary Alacoque. She is the most significant source for the devotion to the Sacred Heart, and she's from the 17th century, which raises the first question: 17th century? Why not from the 4th century, from the 3rd century, or why not even from scripture? Why not even from early church? Why doesn't it exist in the early church? And you probably know the answer because it didn't exist in the early church. It's a new devotion. It's a new thing. So that alone should, to be honest, that alone should basically make us say, no, we shouldn't really play around with this. This doesn't make sense. Our forefathers didn't have this kind of a worship. Why should we have? Right? And that's a good question. But more interestingly, if you can take a look at the rest of the page, especially, stuff like this, which I'm not going to read, but you can read that, or, this account, which, they're real accounts, right? So If you want to read that, check that out. But that's what I want to show you instead of a irreverent image. I just think that doesn't make any sense. Although you might say, "Oh, Medvite, you're a hypocrite because you made fun of RC saints. You're just making fun of an RC saint right now." Yes, because they're not my saint. If I made fun of my own saint, then I'm a hypocrite. But they're not my own saint, right? Now, if you want to say, "Oh, what if I made fun of your saints?" Well, good luck, because due to the Byzantine Catholics, they're also your saints too. So good luck with that. Have fun. You can't really do that because that will be as if you're making fun of your own saints. Because again, the Byzantine calendar, liturgical calendar, contains the saints in that calendar too. Byzantine saints. You know who that includes? That includes Saint Photius, who attacked the Filioque. That includes Saint Gregory Palamas. In the Byzantine calendar, the second Sunday of Lent. What is it? What is it called? The Sunday of Saint Gregory Palamas. And a bunch of other Byzantine saints that you hate. I mean, Saint Peter the Alliot, the Roman Catholics think Saint Peter the Alliot didn't even exist. He's in the Byzantine Catholic, and he's in the Byzantine Catholic list of saints too. So he's also your saint. So you're basically attacking your own saint there too. So I just want to start off with that.
So I know it's been quite a long time since I've made one
ooh.
of these, but now that my semester's all done, I can get back to putting out video content again. And as I've said about a few weeks ago, I do want to address some of the videos that patrons in particular have requested that I make. So I want to make sure that those are all done first before I move on to the other projects of mine that I want to pursue. So the first of these video requests that I want to address is
the Sacred Heart.
This whole question over the Sacred Heart devotion. Now, maybe a lot of you don't know, but there is a certain strain among particularly the Orthodox who maintain that a religious devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus is somehow tantamount to the heresy of Nestorianism, and that this is supposed to be just yet another example of Western piety being rife with what...
Not Western piety per se, Roman Catholic piety, more so. You can call it Latin. I don't want to say Western, but Latin is the better term, because I don't believe in this, oh, the schism is about West versus East. I don't believe that. I think the geography happened to be that, but I don't believe that, partially because when the schism first initially happened in 1054, you still had Orthodox patriarchates in the West. And even some Roman Catholic, bishops that are in communion with the Roman Catholic pontiff in the East. So it isn't, I don't like that characterization.
They call prelest, and therefore a sign that, the Latin Church has fallen out of favor with God.
Sacred Heart is prelest, by the way. Yeah.
So before I kind of go into refuting this, it's important to go over how this argument is supposed to work. So what is Nestorianism?
So he's trying to summarize our argument, and you're going to notice that he doesn't really have a clue what the argument is, which itself really shows you that this video is not something to be taken seriously. But let's listen
to
what
it would actually be applied to something like the Sacred Heart devotion. Well, Nestorius, of course, as I'm sure a lot of you know, held that there are essentially two subsisting persons in Christ, such that one person is assigned to his humanity and that another one is assigned to his divinity. So
if you said if you went up to Nestorius and said, this is what you believe, Nestorius, he will say, no, I don't believe that, because Nestorius says that Christ is one person. So Nestorius doesn't openly say that he's two persons. That's a mischaracterization of Nestorius' position. What he described now is an outworking of Nestorius' position. Nestorius himself will never say such a thing. He will say that this is heretical, because this position was indeed heretical. I mean, you can say this is adoptionism. This is, Nestorius will just say, that position you just described, that's adoptionism. I don't believe that. Many Nestorians will say the same thing as well. So that's a mischaracterization of his position. That's not what he believes. That's an outworking of his position. That's why we call it Nestorianism. We don't call it Nestorianism because this is what Nestorius believed. We call it Nestorianism because this is what his system results in.
So he objected to referring to the Blessed Virgin as the Mother of God, or the Theotokos, precisely because to do so in his mind would contradict his view that the Blessed Virgin was merely the mother of the person of Christ's humanity.
That is wrong. If you actually look at the way he signifies names, if you look at the names that Nestorius gives to the natures, the name Christ signifies the two natures. So when he says Christotokos, for him, that's not a problem. That includes the divine nature too, for him, the name Christ. His problem was that when you speak of the names that signify the divine nature, right, like Theotokos, that implies giving birth to God. So it's way deeper than that. It is, again, a very gross oversimplification. That's, again, why most people don't even know what Nestorianism is properly. and it's a mischaracterization. No, that's not precisely why he rejects the title Theotokos. It's more than that. And if you read him, he says the same thing.
Now, obviously, the Orthodox view of this, and by Orthodox I mean the non-heretical view, the Chalcedonian view, is that Christ is one person in two distinct natures, and that the subject...
Nestorius will say the same thing, by the way. Nestorius actually does say the same thing. He actually even accepts Chalcedon. Now, obviously, I don't think that he accepts it in full, like most Nestorians. They never accept it in full. I made my own arguments against that, so don't pull that on me. I've already dealt with that issue. But Nestorius does say one person, two natures. He does say this. So he doesn't really understand the Chalcedonian view fully. I've made countless videos on the issue. I know what I'm talking about. He has no idea what he's talking about, and he's trying to play the apologist, even though he has no idea what he's talking about, which is sad. I mean, this is the stuff you'd read from Wikipedia, and obviously Wikipedia, I mean, even Wikipedia will correct you. Even Wikipedia will say you're wrong.
Of Christ's humanity is just simply the Son of God, who is also the subject of Christ's divinity. And such is the whole...
So what he explains is adoptionism. It's not Nestorianism. Nestorianism is different.
Chalcedonian formula here. Now, with that all being said, it should be somewhat easy, I think, to discern how someone might object to the Sacred Heart devotion. And that is, if you're singling out one aspect of Christ's humanity, namely the heart, which, by the way, in this devotion, it does cover multiple facets of the term heart. There is an element that...
Okay, so... sorry, I had to take a comfort burp, but that is not exactly the argument. That's a very gross oversimplification. There's more to it than what you just described. So it's not just that it singles out the human nature. That's not the only problem. The problem is that it introduces a new devotion to Christ. Not even new devotion to Christ, but a new devotion. It introduces a new worship. Now there are two sets of worships of Christ. There is one worship to him as a person, and now there's another worship introduced to his heart. And this is what the 8 anathema specifically deals with St. Cyril's 12 anathemas, right? Which is dogmatized in Ephesus. His 8 anathema says one worship. And many Nestorians argued for two worships. Now, even them, they will say, I set apart the natures, but I unite the worship. So he's kind of, Nestorius says that, for example. He says, I unite the worship. And he unites them by using the name Christ. But it still is two worships at the end of the day. As St. Cyril points out, not only to Nestorius, but also to multiple people. And this is an argument, by the way. This is a Christological dispute that happened for a century. Okay, so this is not just something fringe. It's not a diorite talking point. This is a disputation that happened in the 4th century with Apollinarians. Apollinarius said that the Orthodox believed in two worships. And then in the 5th century, St. Cyril attacked Nestorians for believing two worships. So... No, that's not exactly. There's a lot more to it, and I don't think he even named me, so he wasn't even naming me. I don't even know if he actually even watched the video because he's not dealing with any of the objections. And spoiler, he doesn't talk about the 12 anathemas, which is the main force of my argument. He doesn't mention that anywhere.
Does focus on the biological faculty that does pump blood, and this is because
I mentioned
poetic emphasis on the role.
I mentioned there's a multiple terms used the term heart,
this is why,
but it mainly refers to the biological heart.
The animal's blood, and the source of the blood's life-giving operation is indeed the heart. So it does cover that aspect of it. It also covers.
It mainly covers that aspect. It doesn't. It mainly covers that aspect
of impassioned love, or even spiritual love, which Christ exemplified for us on the cross for the sake of our own redemption. So
that's really interesting. Where in scripture does it say that? That's pretty interesting. Where in the church fathers do they say that? I mean, maybe you can find a couple quotations, but I don't see this kind of, the crucifixion is a great example of Christ's heart, and I don't see this kind of language. First of all, not in the scriptures, so you can't find it there, but I don't find this in the church fathers either. Maybe you can find this in some pre-schism, maybe Western fathers, but maybe is it in the Eastern fathers? Does it exist there? I mean, again, maybe there is. I'm not too sure myself, but my main gripe is that he doesn't cite the church fathers. And if you're not citing the church fathers, and honestly, you're not citing the scriptures either, then, what's the basis of your position? There's nothing that I can really take serious if you can't even provide me with a basis of your position. That's my biggest pet peeve right now.
Now, there are other facets of it too, but they're not really relevant to go into for the sake of this video. I am going to focus primarily on the bodily element of these facets, just because that is, as far as I can tell, the source of the Nestorian accusation.
Yes.
So the heart of that accusation is that, as I was saying earlier, if you...
That's a nice pun. Not sarcastic. That is a nice pun. That's the only part of this video that's actually pretty good. That it's the pun.
Single out one aspect of Christ's humanity, namely the heart, would this not be tantamount to affording some kind of divinity to one part of Christ as isolated and distinct from the integral...
That is not the argument. You're making shit up.
...unity of the two natures under one subject.
Once
you begin to sever these things in such a way as to afford worship to one or some other limb or faculty, they would argue that you are putting a wedge into what is supposed to be worshipped as one integral, undivided unity, namely the subject of the Logos in two...
Kind of, but the way you went to that argument is completely wrong. That's not the argument. The argument is that you introduce something new to worship. So now it's not just one and the same Christ, it's one and another that is being worshipped. The one being Christ and another being the heart. That's the main problem here. Sacred Heart introduces a new worship. So now you have two worships of Christ, which is precisely what the 8th anathema of St. Cyril of Alexandria in Ephesus 1 is speaking against. And you don't deal with this argument. You're not mentioning the 8th anathema. Try to talk about the 8th anathema. You aren't. Why not? Maybe because I think he might not even know what 8-12 anathemas is, which, I mean, if a random Christian didn't know, that's okay. But if you're going to be an apologist, you should know this. This is basic stuff. 12 anathemas is basic stuff.
Yet unified natures. So in response to this, I think there are, of course, a number of things to be said. For one, I don't see how the logic would not equally apply to the Blessed Sacrament, the Eucharist.
Because we don't have Eucharistic adoration, so actually that applies to you, not to us.
In this sacrament, as Christ commanded in John 6, we worship the body and the blood of Christ in each and every crumb and particle of the consecrated...
John 6 doesn't say that, quote, like, fully quote. So, first of all, you're paraphrasing. Second of all, you're not quoting. You're only saying John 6. John 6 deals with a lot of different stuff. John 6 isn't just about the Eucharist. John 6 has a lot of events going on. So you should have precisely tried to, signify which verses in particular. But if you read John 6 verse 12, there's no Eucharistic adoration in John 6. John 6 is not saying what you're saying directly. So you're paraphrasing. But what are you even paraphrasing is what I'm asking. Because, I mean, I don't see it there. I read John 6 just like 20 minutes ago before like recording this just to make sure. I read John 6. I don't see it there. Maybe I am blind. If I am blind, point out the verse. Don't just say John 6, because John 6, again, deals with a lot of different stuff.
Bread and wine, respectively. We worship the body of Christ as body and the blood of Christ as blood. Yet we also recognize that by natural concomitance, that the body and blood...
Again, we don't have Eucharistic adoration. Christ says, take, eat, this is my body. He doesn't say, take, worship. There's not a single instance where he says, take, worship. He says, take, eat. So this deals with Eucharistic adoration. We don't have Eucharistic adoration either, but...
in every particle is the person of the Logos as its very subject. We worship the blood insofar as it is the blood of Christ. Christ is the subject of that very blood, considered even as blood. And that is because Christ...
He is the subject, but if any one of you has read Nestorius, you will notice that what he says is what Nestorius also says. So he's not saying anything different. And my argument isn't that, oh, you make Nestorian arguments, therefore you're Nestorian. No, Nestorius says a lot of right things. What you're saying in terms of Christology is correct. Like, the body of Christ is the body of Christ and that. But I want something more, right? You're not providing that something more. And the truth is, you can't really provide something more. The more that you need to provide is rejecting the Sacred Heart devotion. To be honest with you, that's the only way you can get out of this. But you're trying to defend it. So really, when you're making these arguments, you can't really... I already know that's what you think. My problem, again, is not... I mean, that's an outworking, right? The separation of the two natures is an outworking of your position, so you can say that as much as you want. That's logically, it's the outworking of that, because you introduced... It's not the one and the same that you worship. I want to repeat myself. It's not the one and the same. It's one and another, right? unless you're going to say that the heart is strictly identified with the person of Christ, which that will mean that Christ's arm is equals the person of Christ, which is pretty much heretical, to be honest, and not even this. I will even say like multitude of other heresies too. But
is the subject in each and every bodily accident of his human nature. Now, similarly, in the Sacred Heart devotion, the heart of Christ, which is, in poetic terms and even in biological terms, it can be considered the epicenter and source of life. This only derives being and intelligence.
Epicenter and the source of life. Okay, I'll let that pass.
From its integral unity with the whole of the body and by extension with the person or subsistence.
Wait.
Biological terms, it can be considered the epicenter and source of life. This only derives being and intelligibility from its integral unity with the whole of the body and by extension with the person.
So the heart, because it's the source of life, can be said to be the integral unity of
person or subsistent subject of that body. And this
of the person of Christ. So that kind of logically leads that it's the unity, it's where the two natures are united kind of a deal. So the heart kind of becomes the central point of unity. This is the logical outworking of what he said. So let's boil this down. What does this mean? If the heart is the unity of the two natures, well, first of all, the heart has to pre-exist. The heart didn't even exist before the union. So it can't be the integral part of unity. The integral part of the unity of the person of Christ is the person of Christ. That's what hypostatic union means. It means union according to hypostasis. It doesn't mean union of hypostases, like Nestorians and Monophysites want us to believe. It means that the unity of the natures happened in the person of Christ, happened in the hypostasis of Christ. If we attribute this to the heart, first of all, the heart didn't even exist before the union. The heart is a result of the union. So to speak of the heart as this kind of like epicenter of the union is it's pseudo spiritual nonsense. It doesn't fly. Look, we're not a bunch of kids here. This is not gonna fly in front of our faces. Your logic here does not make any sense. And also, which church father says this? You're saying this. This is your opinions. No one cares what you think. Like no one cares what I think. No one cares what we think. Everyone cares what the fathers think. So where are the fathers in this equation? Where are they? I can't see them. And you're not cited a single church father so far. And you call yourself a Roman Catholic. Am I dealing with a Roman Catholic or am I dealing with a Protestant? I'm not too sure.
Case, the very Son of God. Now, this follows from an elementary reading, I think, of just basic scholastic metaphysics, which has always maintained that the essential parts of a thing do not have existence in themselves, and are therefore not to be considered substances, but only have existence as those parts, inasmuch as they are united with the substantial whole of which they are parts.
So the part-whole language, Leontius of Jerusalem uses this. I'm fully aware of this language. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that the part refers to the whole. I know that's what you're trying to say. I completely understand. Here's the problem with that. Number one, the whole part language is analogical. It's not strict one-to-one. If it was strict one-to-one, first of all, Nestorianism will be true because Christ will then be the product of the union. So that scholastic semantical stuff you're talking about, it's not just semantics, but that scholastic metaphysics you're talking about, it's analogical. It's not one-to-one, because if it was one-to-one, then Christ will be a result of the union of the two natures, not the center of the union of the two natures. So Christ is not a whole made up of the parts humanity and divinity. He is the whole where the two wholes, humanity and divinity, come together in a union. And that's why we can say that if you refer to his humanity, you refer to the entire whole, the person of Christ. I understand that. I'm not disputing that. If you notice my arguments, I've never challenged that. I know about that metaphysic. I've never challenged that. So you're shadowboxing. You're making arguments that doesn't have anything to do with this issue. My point, again, is that you introduce another thing to be worshipped aside from Christ. You can say, oh, well, but this another thing that we worship cannot be understood without being in the context of without Christ. Okay, now, if you're going to make that argument, okay, I'll bite. Let's say I accept that. The humanity of Christ. Who gives the humanity of Christ? The Virgin Mary, right? So we can't speak of the humanity of Christ excluding the context of the Virgin Mary. So without thinking of the Virgin Mary, we cannot speak of the human nature of Christ. So the human nature of Christ without the Virgin Mary doesn't exist. So, and since the human nature is a part of the whole that we ascribe to the entire whole of Christ, right? And the human nature comes from the Virgin Mary. So why don't we worship the Virgin Mary either then? Right? So now the Virgin Mary, as the second uh, source of Christ now, should be also be given worship, right? You might say, but she only gave the human nature. It doesn't matter. She only gave the human nature, but in this system, she gave an integral part of the unity of Christ's unity to Christ. So why don't we worship her then? You can say, oh, we can't worship. Well, I worship Mary. I'm not worshiping Mary outside of the context of Christ. I'm just worshiping the Virgin Mary for giving God his human nature. If I said that in his argument, this will actually make sense, because if you 100% adopt pagan metaphysics without Christianizing it properly, you're going to end up with paganism. You're going to end up with paganism. It just makes sense, right? Or you can talk about idols, right? If you look at an idol worshiper and say, why are you worshiping idol? Well, I can't think of my God outside the context of this idol. So when I'm worshiping the idol, really, I'm just worshiping my God. So don't break my idols, please. I mean, we should also be accepting that argument. That it doesn't make any sense. And it's not, we don't break idols just because, oh, they're worshiping a false god. It is much more to it. It's because idol worship fundamentally is heathenry. It's heretical. It's fundamentally heretical. But it's not heretical just because you're worshiping another god. It's much more than that. So again, if you adopt pagan metaphysics without the Christian and not the Christianized form, you can say, or maybe Christian metaphysics and you paganize it, which is what it is, you're going to end up with paganism. And that's what the logical outworking of this is. So the argument, it doesn't even make sense on its own grounds.
So, for example, hydrogen and oxygen on the scholastic view, while of course integral parts of water, they do not have existence in and of themselves as integral parts of water. They have what is called virtual presence, but they only exist as...
I don't know if I want to compare hypostatic union with a scientific synthesis. I don't think I want to do something like that. And if you're a science nerd and you know about Christology, maybe you guys can give him a piece of your mind and tell him why he's wrong. I'm not a science pro. Science is for nerds. Science is for the people who have good grades in class. I used to have good grades in class until high school, so I don't care about science. But
integral parts of water.
It just doesn't sound right with me.
It is the unity of water as a substance which affords them their own intelligibility. And so similarly, the heart of Christ is completely unintelligible apart from its union with the subject of Christ's humanity.
Yeah, you said that 3 times right now.
Himself. So whenever someone renders worship to the Sacred Heart, there is an implicit...
He said this 3 times by now, which isn't a big deal, but it's an 8-minute video. You'd expect him to like make rapid points. He's just kind of repeating himself.
Understanding that worship is only given to the heart insofar...
Which I've repeated myself multiple times. I know that, but my point is, like, if it's going to be a short video, don't repeat yourself all the time. If it's going to be a short video, just rapid fire. Give up your objections quick and fast. That's kind of what you're supposed to do. If it's going to be a long video like this one, then you can afford to repeat yourself, because sometimes people can forget in that short span of time, right?
As it is an integral part of the whole Christ. In this sense, I would actually argue the Sacred Heart devotion constitutes perhaps the strongest repudiation of Nestorianism, because it's...
This is the stupidest thing I've heard in 2021, and I think when this year ends, this is going to be in the top 10 of my list of the stupidest things I've ever heard in 2021. Are you an idiot? Classical atheist, are you an idiot? This is a genuine question. Like, what's your thought process making this argument?
Listen, understanding that to argue the Sacred Heart devotion constitutes perhaps the strongest repudiation of Nestorianism.
What kind of an idiot makes this argument? Like, if I spend 5 minutes talking about how stupid this guy is, I will not do it justice. I'm not going to spend time doing that. But this is genuinely the biggest smooth brain argument I have ever seen anyone make in recent memory. I genuinely mean this. Let me explain to you why this is so stupid. Aside from the fact that his argument doesn't make sense on its own because of the reasons I've explained, no church father makes this argument. If this is the strongest argument against Nestorianism, surely you'd expect Saint Cyril to use this argument against Nestorius. If you can find a Sacred Heart argument from Saint Cyril of Alexandria against Nestorius, I'm saying this right here, right now. If you can find a Sacred Heart argument, Sacred Heart here argument, this kind of an argument from Saint Cyril of Alexandria, I'm making a challenge. Find me that argument. I will become Roman Catholic this instant. 100%. No shot. I will become Roman Catholic. I will become anything but Orthodox. I will give up my Orthodoxy if you can find something like this. Don't get excited because you can't find it. Because it doesn't exist. Because no one in the early church made an argument like this. And I know this as much as I know my name. Don't type on Twitter and say, St. Cyril of Alexandria. Like, no, that's not going to work for me. Proper source, you can't find it because it doesn't exist. There is no Sacred Heart argument in the early church. If it was in the early church, we will have it. Like, Orthodox will have it. We don't have it. The early church doesn't have it. So, again, no one in the early church that argues against Nestorianism ever makes an argument like this. So if this is the strongest argument against Nestorianism, then why is it not in the church fathers? And who says that's even? According to you, but no one cares what you think. You're just some nerd online, like I am. We're both nerds online. Who do we care about? We care about what the church fathers say. If the church fathers say this is the strongest argument, I will say, okay, you're right. The thing is, they don't say that. They don't even make an argument like that. The strongest refutation of Nestorianism is the person of Christ. That's what St. Cyril will say. I don't want to stay more, but this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in recent memory, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself for making a stupid argument like this and to destroy our IQ levels. I have lost 20% of my brain cells listening to that stupid-ass argument that you just gave. I hope you're ashamed of yourself.
Because it's predicated upon a strong insistence that the heart of Christ cannot be isolated from the person of the Logos. And it is only because of this integral unity that this devotion even came into being in the first place.
You're stupid.
Now, I think it should also be noted that the Sacred Heart devotion is by no means universally condemned among the Orthodox. Western Rite Orthodoxy, for example, celebrates this devotion with,
Western Rite Orthodoxy. First of all, not all of the Western Rite parishes celebrate the Sacred Heart, so that's a lie. You're making stuff up. Are there Western Rite parishes that do venerate that do the Sacred Heart worship? Unfortunately, yes, there are. But the way we know things in Orthodoxy is if they're patristic, right, antique, whether they're universal, or whether they have a consensus. This is what St. Augustine says. This is what St. Vincent of Lerins says. This is what the fathers of the Council of Chalcedon says. Okay? So first of all, unlike you, I'm actually citing fathers here. And you can read the Acts of the Council of Chalcedon to find this. You can... in the footnotes, it mentions St. Augustine. You can read St. Vincent of Lerins and, refute me if it doesn't exist, but it does exist there. But so that's the point I'm trying to make here is that, first of all, only the Western Rite parishes kind of even have this. You don't see this in any other jurisdiction. So it's not universal. It's not antique, definitely. It's nowhere in the early church, and it doesn't even have consensus within the Western Rite parishes. Not every single Western Rite parish does this. So we will say, in our system, that's an abuse. That's an abuse. That's a liturgical abuse. Okay, that's something that you shouldn't be doing. Just because certain priests do liturgical abuses doesn't mean suddenly entirety of Orthodoxy accepts it. That's like me saying, oh, look at Roman Catholic. There's so many Roman Catholic homosexual priests. That means Roman Catholicism thinks homosexuality is a-okay. That's like me saying that. It doesn't make any sense. Homosexuality within the clergy is an abuse of the Roman Catholic system. It's the same thing. And I will even go as far as to say, I think Sacred Heart is actually worse than homosexuality, if you want my honest opinion. But nevertheless, you're not making the point. No, that's a bad argument. You don't even understand our system, and you're making these arguments. You think that if some random parish somewhere did like some weird cheese sacrifices to icons, does that mean that Orthodoxy accepts cheese sacrifices now? Of course not. So give me a break. This is a stupid argument. Not even a preschooler will make this kind of an argument. A preschooler that actually knows about Orthodoxy. He doesn't know about Orthodoxy, so it makes... And you might say, oh, but David, you're being hypocritical because you attack BizCats for doing non-Roman Catholic things. Yes, because the Roman Catholic Church, the papacy, dogmatically accepts the Byzantine Catholics. That's something different. The Orthodox Church does not dogmatically accept Sacred Heart worship. If it did, we will see it in our liturgy, but we don't see it. So, no, don't make this argument. You have no clue what you're talking about.
About as much passion as Roman Catholics do. And while one might simply discount the Western Rite Orthodox Church as some kind of a schismatic sect from the true Orthodox Church from an Orthodox perspective,
I have never seen an Orthodox ever make this argument. I have never seen anyone make this kind of an argument ever. You're the first person I have heard that say Western Rite is schismatic. And that itself proves that you're a completely clueless buffoon who has no idea what you're talking about. You should be ashamed of yourself. I've never heard anyone say, maybe you can cite me a couple of idiots. Guess what? Every religion has a bunch of idiots. It's your fault for listening to those idiots, just like how it's my fault for taking you seriously. But it's like a Roman Catholic that comes up towards us and says, "Oh, look, don't you guys have Sergius Bulgakov?" Like I've seen Roman Catholics talk about Bulgakov all the time, for example. Bulgakov is in hell, okay? Get this to your head straight. Bulgakov is in hell. I don't care what you have to say. He's in hell. He's a heretic. He's twice anathematized. So we don't care about Bulgakov. We don't care about who he is. We don't care about what he is. We don't care about anything that he says. So don't bring him up. Bring him up. But as I said, only a bunch of stupid Orthodox care about him. We don't care about him. Okay, just like that, we don't care about idiots who think Western Rite is schismatic. No, Western Rite is fully canonical. Western Rite is fully canonical. Canonical Western Rite, that is. Because there's some old calendarists that are not part of the Orthodox Church that are also Western Rite. But I'm talking about a canonical Western Rite is fully part of the Church. So I've never seen anyone say that. The fact that he's even bringing something stupid like this up, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is a stupid art. I can't believe this.
But the fact that they hold to it should be sufficient to disregard the argument that this is some kind of a proof text against Roman Catholicism.
Nope, I just shown to you that your argument doesn't hold, so it's not sufficient enough. No. So you still have to.
Is not by any means unique to Roman Catholics. So that's the argument, and
it is unique to Roman Catholics. Don't give me that. You're being an idiot right now. It's like me saying, oh, look, Byzantine theology is not unique to Orthodox because the Lutherans have Byzantine Rite churches. Who cares? Okay, who do they get this from? From us. And who does Western Rite get this stuff from? From you. They get it from you, from Roman Catholics, not from the pre-schism church, not from the Orthodox Church. They got it from you. Which, by the way, that all actually should be enough to disregard Western Rite. Sacred Heart in Orthodoxy, but that's a different topic.
Now that my semester is done, I'm going to make a lot more of these. But I first going to address patron requests like this one, and then.
I guess what are we going to have? Oh, Orthodox bad and wrong. To responding Orthodox arguments to immaculate. Are we going to see this shit? Oh, are we going to see defenses of the Pachamama like you do on Twitter? Oh, thank you, Pachamama, for giving us a new reason to defend the papacy. I mean, I can't wait for your new content, man. It's going to be so great. It's going to be so great and enlightening. But yeah, you don't debate anyone. But it's going to be so great. Trust me. I'm being sarcastic too much, but I've never seen him make good videos, so.
As I said, pursue my own project. So very sorry it's taken this long, but I hope that this video was useful. God bless.
It was useless. I'm sorry, but it was useless. But that ends the video here. Well, I kind of want to say a couple of things, kind of summarize this and what I want to say. So one of the things I want to say is he has no clue about the argument. This is not even a proper response. Honestly, this is not even a proper response. He did not talk about the 12 anathemas. This is the integral force of my argument. The argument, again, is that you're introducing something new to the worship. You're worshiping it. Now, if this was Sacred Heart veneration, right? Sacred Heart veneration will be distinguishing parts in Christ, but that will be okay, right? Because you're worshiping Christ, but you're venerating an biological aspect of Christ for whatever reason. Theologically speaking, that will be okay. But another thing I want to raise is that if Sacred Heart, like, if you can scholastically defend the Sacred Heart, why not stop there? Why not stop at the heart? Let's talk about the legs, arms, head, ear, right? Why don't we worship the other body parts of Christ too? Why just stop at the heart? And that's the point. It's worshiping the human nature as distinct from the divine nature. And you can say all you want about, oh, we can't consider these as separate from Christ. Conceptually, actually, you do, because that's what conceptual distinction kind of refers to. Conceptually, you actually do. And when you conceptually do that, You're separating things to worship. This is one of the fundamental reasons why idol worship is so wrong and so heretical, because conceptually you are introducing polytheism and paganism and all of these, because conceptually you're kind of creating your own made up gods. And just like that, you're conceptually separating the natures of Christ and giving worship to both of them, introducing two worships. Again, this is the very error of Nestorians, not just Nestorius himself, but even his partisans. This is the very error St. Cyril of Alexandria combats against Theodore of Mopsuestia, Diodor of Tarsus, and many other Nestorian partisans. This is the very error he's talking about. You cannot distinguish in worship the natures of Christ. You should consider the worship as one, because you don't worship a what, you worship a who. You worship a person, you worship God. You don't worship natures as if they're separated conceptually even from God. You can't even conceptually, not even conceptually separating the natures is acceptable. Because what do you use to worship? Well, you use your heart, but you also use your mind. You also use your intellect. You also know what you're supposed to worship. So there's that aspect too. So all of this considered, he never dealt with any of these arguments. He never talked about the 12 anathemas, the eighth anathema of St. Cyril, where you can't introduce this. He never really dived into this argumentation. And another thing is that he never gave any defense. One of my other arguments against the Sacred Heart is it's just not patristic. We don't see it in the early church. Why is this not in the early church? Why is it? Why is it not? Why is this not in the early church? And why is the most significant source of this devotion so freaking satanic? If you saw this kind of a devotion and story in Far East Asia or like Native America, every single one of you Western cultural supremacist LARPers will say, oh, look at those Babas. These are so barbarous people. They're worshiping the hearts. Look at these barbarous people. They're so stupid. But, you know, my Western civilization does this, so I gotta defend it, guys. Honestly, let's cut to the chase. That's the reason. You're not defending the Sacred Heart because you think it makes sense. You're defending the Sacred Heart because it's a product of Western civilization. Let's cut to the chase. Let's cut the bullshit. That's why you believe in it. And that's why you're in defense of Roman Catholicism is this. It's all about Western civilization with you people. A few of you might genuinely be a Christian in your own minds. I will say 90% of you who are recent converts, where'd you convert from? Where'd you get this idea from? Where'd you get this idea to become Roman Catholic? Because you think the Roman Catholic Institute, right, the Institute of the Papacy, is the only lasting institute, the remnant of Western civilization still standing today. And you, being a warrior knight of the Western civilization, gotta stand with the Roman Catholic Church, because that's the only place that you can find solace. Let's be completely honest. That's why you defend these things. That's why you care about any of these things. It's not because of the real business. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's why most of you defend this. So that's what I want to end up with. Thank you all for watching this. If you're a Sacred Heart worshiper, I mean, think of that term. Do you want to be called a Sacred Heart worshiper? Do you want to be called a heart worshiper? You don't want to be. Well, you are a heart worshiper. If you're a heart worshiper, just think of all of this for 5 seconds. Ask yourself this. Why did this not exist in the early church? Did it exist in the early church? Maybe David is lying. Maybe it did exist in the early church. Let me look it up. Why did it not exist in the early church? Why did it come up so late? Why is it such a late devotion? Why doesn't it even have a proper scriptural backing? Now you can find some like Protestant tier scriptural backing, but every single nonsensical doctrine like universe, you can find scriptural backing there too. But properly speaking, can you find it? You can't, right? So yeah, that's what I want you to think about. And thank you all for watching this video. I'm sorry it's been a bit too long. I didn't want this reply to be too long, but yeah, and this is gonna be, I'm not gonna deal with classical atheist nonsense on this topic, at least. He has proven himself to be utterly incompetent on this issue. He has shown himself to be a person who has no idea what he's talking about, and he has shown himself to be a person that should not be taken seriously on the issue of the Sacred Heart. Therefore, I will not take him seriously. He can throw as much as heat. He can throw his attack dogs on me from Twitter. Please click dislike on the real Midvite's video. He's a really bad, evil person who makes fun of the way I speak. Look at the way I type. I can type properly, but I can barely even speak, even if I have a script. I don't mind because it just makes me more popular. So, you know, please do that. It will give more attention. More Roman Catholics will listen to me. And maybe a couple of them will say, hey, you know, this David guy, he kind of does make sense. And why is he more masculine than the guy I'm supporting? This guy can't even speak, right? Some of them might even say that. So I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And again, thank you all for watching this. Whether you're a hater or a enthusiast or an enjoyer of this channel, thank you all for watching this. May God be with you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.